This is the Trading Psychology Podcast. This is VP, creator of No Nonsense Forex and author of the book No Nonsense Forex Trading Psychology. And with me, as he is every week, it's Rob Reinhold.
Hello, No Nonsense Forex traders. This is Rob Reinhold with Maverick Trading, Maverick Currencies, and the absolutely bizarre Flat Earth Trading Society. We are having so much fun over there.
And just so everybody knows, these episodes are always sponsored by Maverick Trading and Maverick Currencies. Links are down below. Now for episode 49, this is a very interesting one. And this is something that can take place really anytime in your trading career. This is something I am experiencing currently. And this is something Rob has experienced more early in his career. But I think it will speak to a lot of you, especially those of you who have already put a couple years in maybe. But Rob, go ahead and open this up. And again, I'll jump in where it's appropriate because we have two different kind of timelines here, you and I.
Thanks, Patrick. I really want to just go through the evolution of a trader and just what happens to all of us. You remember the very first time you got into trading, it was foreign, it was this weird thing, and then you learned some stuff and you decided, hey, I'm going to put some money on the line. And then you got all this adrenaline and all these gains and losses. And so you went through this process. And we all had these delusions of grandeur, these delusions of, hey, I'm going to start off with my $1,000 and grow it into $4 million within years. And once all of that started to become reality, well, again, once your fantasies, you realize they were fantasies, and then you started to get into the reality of trading, it causes a little bit of shift in your mindset, which is actually really, really positive. So we're now talking about once you get past the part of trading where your heart starts thumping in your chest every time you make a trade, or you're in a trade and the FOMC meeting's coming up and your heart is literally just pounding and you're sweating. And once you finally don't feel that excitement, or you've done that enough times to where you realize, that's too much stress. I don't want to live like that. And so I'm not going to trade FOMC meetings. And then once you get to the point again where you had all these delusions of grandeur, and then you realize, okay, I'm going to make, what am I going to make? 15, 20, 25, 40% a year, whatever that is. If I've got $1,000 and I do the math, it's going to take me 25 years to get to my goals. And then once you finally get to that point where you understand that you wanted to get into trading so you didn't have to do your job that you're currently doing, and then when you found out that trading was just another job, you start to just get a totally, totally different perspective. And Patrick, I know that you know this very, very well. Give us your experience with when this happened.
Well, I think the first time it happens to anybody is when you start out with these really lofty expectations because you learn about leverage. That's how I got really excited. I'm like, so for every dollar in the game that I put in the United States, I can actually get $50 in play. That's pretty darn good. Like I couldn't get, in my mind, get rich enough to leave my job if it was 1-to-1 leverage, but at 50-to-1, okay, now we're talking. Let's see where this goes. And so because of that, you have all these crazy expectations for how well you can do in this market. And then reality hits. You're like, okay, yeah, it's possible, but it's really, really improbable to hit those type of lofty gains because that's just not how this market works. And that's that first stark realization. So that kind of adrenaline dump that happens after that is a tough hurdle to get over, but it's a really, really necessary hurdle to get over. Because if you're approaching anything with ridiculous and untrue expectations, you're doomed from the start.
And the example that you brought up was probably the first lesson everyone has to learn is, yes, you have 50-to-1 leverage, but if you use all 50-to-1 leverage, you're going to get knocked out. The math is just so against you that you'll never make it. So then we learn okay, I have 50-to-1, but there's no way I can touch 50-to-1. And then you start to ramp everything down. And then now all of a sudden you're understanding I've got the leverage available, but I can't use it because the math doesn't work out for me. And that's the first lesson people start to realize is, hey, you know what? I need to do proper position sizing. And by doing that, all of a sudden you're taking a lot of those risks that you were taking that gave you that heart thump, that gave you that adrenaline rush, then it's gone. And the next thing I want to talk about is, I know for me, this is the way it worked for me, and I'm sure that a lot of you are going to relate. I used to have to leave my house in the morning before the market. So the market where I live opens up at 7:30. So I would leave my house around 6, and I would drive downtown about 30 minutes to the Maverick trading office. And this again is 1997, 98. And I would get there probably about, 45 minutes before the bell opened, do all my research, get my stuff ready. And then my drive home, my mood was completely dependent on the P&L that I left the office with that day. Good mood. I got the music blaring. Everything's great, wonderful. The ride home in silence, scowling, trying to turn my mood around so I'm not just the worst person in the world, the worst dad in the world when I get home, and husband. Just tried to turn that around. And then after living that life for a while, I was exhausted thinking, why am I putting so much worry in my daily P&L? Because I had 2 bad days on Monday, Tuesday, and then by the end of the week, I had a great week. So then I said, okay, I'm going to look at it for the week. And now the weekends took a totally different turn because of that. Because good P&L, for the weekend, it was party time. It was like, let's go out shopping. Let's go do this. And then bad week, it was like, nope, mac and cheese. Mac and cheese tonight. That's what we're doing. So anyway, this happens to everyone, to where then all of a sudden you realize, look, I have bad weeks all the time, and it doesn't ruin anything because I make it back in the next week or two. Then you go to a month, and then you go to a quarter, and then really the comfortable place to get to is your yearly return. And we talk about yearly returns, but guess what? Those don't really even matter anyway, because over the past 25 years, I've had a few negative years, and they sucked. They were terrible. They sucked. But guess what? I made it back and more over the next couple of years, and it was just a little blip. Once you finally realize this takes a lifetime, and it's every day, it's every week, it's every month, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes flat. Once you get to that point, all of a sudden, reality sets in, and this is it. This is what we call the grind.
I want to take a few steps back on that and talk about those earlier times. I can actually pinpoint in the history of somebody who finds my channel for the first time when they start to drop off. The biggest drop off I had is those early podcast episodes where I outline the actual expectations for what you can really expect in this market. And I'm not saying the videos before that were overhyped. They weren't. But it got a lot of people really excited on this new system, and I'm sure in their minds, they were thinking, wow, if I implement this system, how high could I go? How much money could I make in such a short amount of time? And I had to come in and say, look, this industry just isn't like that at all. And so I'm sure people at that point were like, well, screw this. I'm going to go find another channel who lies to me and puffs up my ego and my hopes and my ability to do this. And I'm going to do that because that's really the feeling that I want. That's the dream that I don't want to die. So to me, that's the first letdown. When you finally realize, okay, all these crazy dreams and expectations that you've had this entire time, it's just not going to be that way. So there's that. And if you can survive that first drop, I think that's a really big step. So let's say you do that, and then you're moving on again. Now, this is where I try to come in. And you were mentioning this too, Rob, because this is something that intraday traders have a hard time dealing with sometimes, is all the highs and lows within the day. I'm like, look, you should be skipping the FOMC meeting. You should be not spending 6 to 8 hours a day in front of a computer making that your whole day, because that's a really, really good way to burn out. And even if you're doing reasonably well, you're going to feel this tax on your body. You're going to feel this tax in your mind. You're going to feel this tax with the people around you. And at that point, you're going to be encouraged to probably quit too. So these are 2 different points in time, 2 different really large hurdles you have to get over, because the reality is just so much different.
One of my favorite sayings to say to my traders is that when trading becomes really boring, you're finally doing it right. So look, it's a really good thing. It's a really good thing when you get to this point because you've done all the dumb stuff. You've been slapped on your hand enough. You put in enough time and effort into it. And now it's just very methodical. And it's a wonderful place to get to. Any of you that are there, I applaud you. Any of you who aren't there yet, that's your first goal. But after that point, there are some dangers that come from this realization that this is the reality and I'm just going to trade forever. And again, I'll have good months, good weeks, good years, bad years, and you're just going to do it. And what happens is once you get to that point, and we've called it the grind here in this episode, there's some negatives that come from it. The biggest negative in my mind is disinterest. And I remember that there were some times, probably, I'm thinking 2006, 2007, so I'd been trading for about 8 to 10 years, where I knew that I had positions to manage, but I didn't care because sometimes they worked out fine if I didn't manage them, or they just worked out. And if they didn't work out this week, then you know what, I'll work it out next week. And all of a sudden, I started to not manage my trades correctly. I wasn't really on it because of this disinterest, fully knowing that it's all going to work out. Once you have your system and you know that, hey, by the end of the year, I'm going to be around this return, and you're in the middle of the year, and you know if you just keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get to there. You know what? I'll do this tomorrow. So forgetting not managing trades from disinterest, I think, is a really big one, and it hit me quite hard. And I had to realize, hey, you're effing this up. You better set some alerts and start taking care of your business. Patrick, did you ever experience that?
Well, I think you described exactly what I'm going through right now. And I'm glad you said that once you are just completely disinterested in trading, you finally made it, because I guess I do feel a bit better now, because and I've mentioned this on the show, I have been completely disinterested in trading Forex for a while now, quite a while. But oddly enough, 2022 was one of my best years. And I'm trying to think if I'm on pace for that this year. I'm probably going to fall a bit short unless we see some really good runs here. But 2023 is still going to be a good year for me. And it's because I have just so mentally checked out, Rob. It's just a chore. I set a little alarm to remind me, hey, you got to go check your charts and do the things you got to do. And then I do it, and then it's over, and then I move on. Yeah, just like you said. I think your overall P&L throughout the year does matter, because it has to matter somewhere, right? So I always tell people, just worry about what you do that year. You're going to have bad weeks. You're going to have bad months. You're going to have strings of bad weeks. You're going to have strings of bad months. But take inventory of what you do that year, because we are still trying to have faith in a system we just put together. And that's going to take some time as well. But after you've already done that, and this is where I'm at now, you're just kind of putting everything on autopilot. And I have so many other things going on. This is just one of them. It's like I say, the old, you probably remember this because you're a bit older than I am, the old commercial in the 80s, the time to make the donuts, the Dunkin' Donuts commercial. You just get up and it's just this obligatory thing that you have to do at some point in the day, and then you just move on. But like you said, I don't know if we finally get out of that rough period in volume in Forex, if that has anything to do with it, but I am having some of the best results I've ever seen.
The goal of any trader is to get to where you're trading your system all the time without any thought of doing anything elsewise. And again, like I said, that's a wonderful thing. But once you reach this point of, I'm going to call it disinterest, we talked about not managing trades, but you also undertrade. Now, I also found myself, again, when you fully know you're going to do this year after year and crank out trade after trade, and this week is ugh, you know what? There's nothing going on. It's very easy to become disinterested and actually undertrade when there are possible good market scenarios. So this is the danger, is that you go from being an overtrader to an undertrader and someone who is not fully engaged in their position management because of disinterest. And I know that in my own personal life, this happens quite a bit in low volatility environments. In low volatility environments, I become very disinterested in trading, which is a good thing. And I actually listen to myself when I look at the markets and I just say, ugh, ugh. I realize, oh, I'm saying that because of disinterest and because the market isn't any good. And I do listen to myself and I do reduce my trading. And then in high volatility, I'm excited again. There's, everything's going on and I'm active and I'm, hey, this is really good. It's very difficult during those low volatility points to do the things you need to do. Patrick, do you have that same thought?
It's so funny. I actually have the opposite thought because in low volatility markets, I'm trading less, which means I can go through my charts quicker and just get it done. But this is kind of what leading into, well, I guess prefacing the solutions part of the podcast. The big benefit I can say from all this, because this is not a great thing in hindsight. This is an exciting market. We, both of us, Rob, at some point absolutely fell in love with trading. And we were in love for a long time. And now we're just kind of not. And that is kind of sad. There is a bit of a sadness there. However, like you said before, it is a really great place to be. But this is where the challenges come in, like you just talked about. Under trading, forgetting, putting it off to the side. I still treat this like a job. And if this was your job, you're just not going to wake up one day and decide you're not going to go into work, but you're going to go in tomorrow. That's not going to work. They're not going to keep you on board. So even though it's obligatory, I treat it like something that just has to happen. And that way I never skip days, because you never know what can happen if you skip a day. Something can go out of control. It can, you might run into a news event, something. You can't afford to do that. So I just make sure I never do. And I stay hyper-focused, hyper-disciplined in that one regard. I told you I have an alarm, sets off. I have one on my desktop. I have one on my phone. And it just allows me to get that part of my day out of the way. That's the best advice I could probably give to people who have put so much time in that they are now experiencing what you and I feel all the time.
And Patrick, when you were giving the analogy of us falling out of love with trading, I thought, you know what? Let's talk about how to fix this. And as an analogy, imagine that we have you in a psychiatrist's office here, and we have your spouse, the markets, next to you. And as these marriage psychologists, we're going to help you find that love again. Because at one point you were deeply in love with each other, but now you've gotten busy with your own lives, and now the spark just isn't there. So how can you keep that spark? Patrick, do you think this is a good analogy, or is this stupid?
Well, it's good because it's making me laugh. You can't hear it behind the microphone, but I'm curious to see where you go.
All right. Now, there's going to be nothing sexual in here. There's no sexual guidance for how to keep this relationship together. This is an intellectual relationship. Okay. So again, do new things. Look at that. That's exactly what the marriage counselor would say. Hey, do new things together. So go look at new markets. Go look at new indicators. Go look at new things. If you don't know how to do some programming, learn some programming. Do new things. Let's get that spark back. Let's get that interest back to where you're doing new things together. Another thing you could do is to take what you have together and go teach other people how to be happy and how to succeed. So teach others. This one for me has really filled a void in trading. I love to teach the Maverick traders. I absolutely love it. It is what really gives me more excitement than trading. And Patrick, I imagine you're the same way.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because I think I would have burnt out a lot sooner had it not been for my channel. But it was almost, I don't know if it was falling in love with trading again, but it was something new that involved trading. And I got to witness that enthusiasm through other people. And I actually learned more about my own system this way, because there's a lot of really dumb questions, but there were some really good thought-provoking questions about my own system that I never considered. And so it was my little nerd brain being able to kind of go in and adjust and tweak things in my own system because of some of the feedback I was getting. And so through all of that, I kind of got this new, reinvigoration, and now to a lesser degree with the Indicator Profiles series. that I do. Discovering some of these indicators that I was already aware of, but some that I wasn't, and breaking them down and sharing them with other people. Yeah, like you said, this has really prolonged my own shelf life in terms of my own interest in this market. The day-to-day, me showing up and actually trading my charts, that's still really boring. But at least in the scope of the trading markets, Forex and metals and crypto and things like that, being able to teach others and getting the feedback that I get from them is a really good way to keep that enthusiasm, maybe not super high, but at least at a higher level than it would have been otherwise.
One of the things I found out after my first couple of years, I brought in one of my close friends. I said, hey, you got to come do this trading thing with me. And I never would have expected this, but I got way more joy and satisfaction and happiness watching him make a couple $1,000s than me making a couple $1,000. I promise you, if there's someone that you care about and you show them how to do this and they succeed and they make money and they go like buy a new car, that is way more payoff of trading than you growing your account a couple % that month.
No, it really is. And I think I've thrown this number out before. It's probably getting close to 400, 500 people we've gotten into the prop firm field through my channel. And that it never gets old, because when they let me know, I could see the excitement in the words they type. And to think that, even though their career is just beginning and they could completely fall on their face for all I know, this was a dream that took me a long time to realize. And it was such a big, I can't think of the word. It was just such a big milestone in my own trading and just how great it felt to get to that point. It actually said, hey, you are such a good trader that you are worthy of having another firm take you on and to have that firm give you their money. That is significant, right? I always thought growing up that I had to go to school for 4 years and then grind it out on Wall Street, and who knows what that was going to look like. And I felt intimidated. I didn't feel like I was good enough to do that. But through my own volition and through my own endeavors, I actually got there on my own. That was a really big deal. That gave me a level of accomplishment and confidence that I really needed, and it really set the tone for my own future. And so to be able to give that to other people, I always tell people, like, you did this yourself. I just gave you the blueprint. But to play some type of part, like you said with your friend, it really is a feeling that I can't even put into words. Because it just keeps happening. It's still happening today. So yeah, that really is awesome. Again, my own trading every day is still what it is. But as far as my love of the market goes, this has really kept my interest and really kept my enthusiasm high. And as long as my channel exists, it's going to stay that way.
Well, that is fantastic. And I just love to hear those stories. And yeah, if you guys have any stories, we always love to hear them. I know that whenever I'm a little down, feeling a little ground thin, I'll get an email from one of my traders, or we'll go through our trader profits at the end of the month, that I'll send out distributions, and all of a sudden I'm in a good mood again. So it's awesome. And let's talk about the last thing you can do. And this is something I want to go back to episode 10. We talked about multiple streams of income. We talked about trading should be one of the things you do. So you really should be able to fill up your time and not get too bored or burnt out, because you're doing other things as well. And look, in the times of low volatility, just spend less time doing your trades, still go through all the checklists, still show up to work every single day, but you can do less. And then on the times when the market is really good and fits your strategy, then you can spend more time on it. As long as it's just something you do, it's really going to help you avoid that burnout.
Yeah, true. And again, you still probably will get burnt out 13 years later, like I have, but that's okay because by then you should have already had a pretty nice career up until that point. You should have made some good money and you should be well on your way. So it's not that bad. But Rob's right. Like when we first start, we all think that our entire day is going to be taken up by trading with our 6 big trading screens that we look at and just grind out all day. I mean, as fun as that would be at first, I guess, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So yeah, like Rob said, just make trading one of the things you do. So for two reasons. One, you're not dependent on the income you get from trading because that's always very inconsistent. But two, so it doesn't overtake you and so you don't burn out right away. And so the game isn't over before it even starts.
If you are feeling that burnout, let me give you what I do. I just sit there and think, you could be doing something else. Meaning, I could be digging a ditch, I could be doing a job I really disliked. And then all of a sudden I say, you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay. Just think of whatever the worst thing you can think of doing for a job, and then realize you could be doing that. Trading is amazing with how boring it is. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I will jump off a bridge before I wait tables again. That's a fact. So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, thank you for joining us here at episode 49 of the Trading Psychology Podcast. Rob and I will both see you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.